Okay, I have 5 o'clock. We'll go ahead and get started. Call this meeting to order. Looks like everybody's here except Mr. Whitaker. If you will, please review the minutes from our last meeting.
Motion to accept the minutes.
Perfect. Do I hear a second?
I'll say.
There's a motion on the floor to accept the minutes. Second by Mr. Burton. All those in favor? Okay, motion approved. We will move on to section A of the proposed amendments to the personnel policy. This is holiday pay, non-paid leave of absence. The red is the change, proposed change.
It basically says the same thing. It's just adding more words to clarify that the day before and or the day of and or the day after, if they are on non-paid leave of absence, they would not get holiday.
Yeah, the issue me and Wiley's talked about, we got with them, you take like our detectives and sometimes they might be out on the case for 2 days.
Mhm.
Working something. And we might have to tell them, go home, get some rest. So this is gonna keep them from getting their holiday pay.
So with that, you can provide a letter, a note clarifying what happened because your schedules.
And we've done it for one of our employees. We gave her leave without pay. If she hadn't had no time to do vacation time,
Okay.
we were told no, she didn't do that. But it was approved by a supervisor. So she didn't get her holiday.
I think I know which one that one is. Okay. So we'll have to look at that and get with Mr. Beller to interpret that.
I'm the department head, and if I give somebody time off without pay or vacation, something came up with her child, she had to take off. And she shouldn't be punished because she had to take off. She shouldn't lose her money for holiday pay.
So that's something that we'll need to discuss with Mr. Beller to interpret that. I am not an expert on this. Please don't think that I am trying to roll over anybody. I'm just trying to get this
He came in
through.
and worked one day on holiday 6 hours.
Mhm.
But he got what he done, finished what he had to do, so he went home, so he can't get his holiday pay.
Was he scheduled, were you
No.
scheduled to work that day?
I was questioning while I was there.
Okay.
I'd like to speak to the boss, if you don't mind. Like this, I'd ask the commission to consider rewording that instead of non-paid leave. Change that to an employee that's on unapproved leave. If someone lays out and doesn't show up for work and I didn't give them leave, and then they weren't afforded leave, and I didn't know about it, then maybe they should be docked for their holiday pay. But in one instance, the lady worked less than 6 months. She wasn't able to take her vacation time, and she had a family emergency, she had to take off. Tried to come up with alternatives to her missing work, said I can't be here. So I approved the leave. She was supposed to be there at 6 p.m. I think she came in at 10 p.m. and worked the remainder of her shift to 6 a.m. that morning. Then that put her holiday pay in jeopardy because she didn't receive pay for her time off. However, it was approved. I allowed her to be off. She was punished for not getting her holiday pay, and I told her she could be off. It's like for the detective example, sometimes they work all night long, and I have to make considerations inside the schedule. They work a couple of days, they're tired, doesn't take off and rest up, and to keep running the overtime. But if that's something for a holiday, and they received no pay, and they were scheduled to be there Monday through Friday, and they were off Tuesday with no pay. At my orders, and that could interfere with their holiday pay. I just encourage the commission to consider, instead of non-paid leave, be unapproved leave, and that would impact your holiday pay.
If I may make a suggestion on that, if we go that route, that's what the commission decides to do, then we need to define what approved leave is and unapproved leave. It's been defined within your policy, right? And that way it's clear on what that means. And of course, we would have to adjust that everywhere, that non-paid leave versus
Approved leave.
approved leave.
Now, it very seldom something like this comes up.
I agree.
It's one of those gaps where there's inconsistency, and like I said, I've told everybody, policy. I know we did this in 2022. It's changed over time. It's not perfect. No policy is. It doesn't account for everything. But and we all realize it's never going to be equal throughout the varying departments, but you make it as fair as you possibly can make it. So, my suggestion is to just make sure we have that defined, what that approved leave versus unapproved leave. Define what that is, and I assume you're referring approved by the department head, correct?
Whichever supervisor has the authority to grant leave.
Okay. Whatever supervising authority in each department that has that,
Authority to grant leave.
right. And, if that's what the commission's, of course, this is the committee that studies all that. I don't make a single decision here. But I just want to make sure we're clear on doing that, if that's what we do.
Commissioners?
So I'm just now getting off into personnel policy, being new to this committee.
Same.
So is the language that is adopted throughout the personnel committee is paid and non-paid is the way it's described? So there's not a differentiate for approved leave versus unapproved leave?
Leave the current wording says that an employee that does not have approved leave shall not be entitled to holiday pay. Something to that effect.
On this, it just says the employee is on a non-paid leave of absence when the holiday occurs. That's what the current policy is.
So what our non-paid leave of absence means, they have no vacation they can take, they have no sick they can take. There's nothing that can cover their pay for their time off. So they are on non-paid leave of absence.
Yes.
But I completely agree with Waylon's sentiment of an approved leave. That would be great to add in there, because I know a lot of non-law enforcement employees have also had the same issue. We've had to follow policy.
There's no way I was gonna pay somebody for not showing up to work, they'd have an excuse.
Many employees we've got, and the way the workforce is today, the situations occur, this happens all the time. And, I think the clarification between non-paid leave and approved leave would help that situation. There's lots of situations where it would be unpaid, very few would be unapproved. There's something laying out, that wouldn't be approved.
Mr. Bella, from a legal standpoint, in order to do that with the policy, we would have to come up with that definition also, correct? And add that, how would we add that to the policy? I know how we would do it with codes and zoning, but is there like a definition section of the policy that we can just add?
Just add it to it, just make sure by the language is presented, personnel policy committee looks at it, goes to, once it's approved in this body, goes to the commission makes the changes. It's that simple. It'd be applied to the definition section, so it's not like I said, policy is kind of I hate to use the phrase, but I'm gonna use it, kind of a living, breathing document, but it morphs to overtime and we adjust it just to make sure that it's fair. Never mind.
So would we be able to just add that, the two definitions, one for paid leave and one for not paid, excuse me, approved versus non-approved,
So
to this amendment?
I can work, well, I wouldn't say adding it to this amendment. I can work up something for the next meeting to where you would have language.
Yeah.
Because right now it would just be throwing stuff at it and we might miss something.
I would recommend you define paid leave, unpaid leave, approved leave, and unapproved leave. That way it's clear on everything. You got 4 definitions there.
Is any of that already defined on the definition page of the policy?
I'm sorry, I don't have my policy book with me, so I can't
I
answer.
don't,
for
I
sure.
didn't have mine either, so.
Okay,
But if we don't have it, we need to. I
we can
recommend
work
have
on that and bring it to the next meeting. Mhm. So I think I need a motion to postpone this or to make these amendments and move it to the next meeting, right?
If that's what you.
Is that what you
define
guys-
that before you make a decision on it, my recommendation would be to do that, to postpone them to the next meeting and then incorporate the definitions, portions of it. That way they can look at that and make a decision on it.
I'll make the motion that we do that. Someone wants a second.
I'll second.
Perfect. So the motion is to come up with some definitions for paid, non-paid, approved, and unapproved leave. And then edit this accordingly at the next meeting. Second. All those in favor? Perfect. All right, now, the next one is B, payday policy.
Mr. Chair, before we move further, Greg, would that suffice for what you're needing? I know the police department is a different animal as far as, say, public works or the ambulance or well, ambulance service, that's similar. I'm just curious if what we're doing is that going to be effective to be able to give you guys the authority to make your adjustments as you need it for staff?
Yeah, I think this was perfect.
I think that'll serve the purpose. What we try to do is if somebody needs discipline, we're discipline. If somebody's entitled to pay, we're gonna get them paid. And if there are sometimes no fault of their own circumstances, they're not able to be there before the holidays. Make sure that they get paid that they're entitled to, if there's no fault of their own or can be helped. And if they're absent without leave, then they should be disciplined for it.
And once I work up language, I'll send it to both of you, because I want your opinion on it. I need your input.
Okay, so the payday policy, it looks like this is just, changing the language from paper checks to direct deposit, correct?
Correct.
The county moved to direct deposit quite a bit ago, right?
About 2 years ago, 2.5 years ago.
Right. But we're already doing what this policy is doing.
Yes. And I might have missed something, so please review. I'm not expecting any major action tonight, unless the committee wants to move it forward, but definitely review. I think Amy and I have looked it over, and I think we have everything included in there. On item 4, I did want to kind of restate that instead of the hard copy pay statements will not be provided. Hard copy pay statements will not automatically be provided. Employees may request these from the Human Resource Department.
But with the new time clock, those are available on that, right?
They're currently available on the payroll system as it is.
Okay.
And we have a couple of employees that do come in and request a hard copy because they're not computer savvy, let's say. So we're happy to provide that. They just won't automatically be provided.
Yeah. Do y'all have a problem with this? Do you have any problem?
I don't like it, so.
Yeah.
Madam Chair, is there anybody that's out of compliance with this that's not receiving a direct deposit?
I think it's just a matter of updating the policy to what's being done.
Right.
It's,
So it's not an issue of non-compliance, it's, we don't issue paper checks anymore. We do not support payroll, we do not issue paper checks, everybody's on direct deposit. Even stated in here, if they don't have a checking account, we can provide them with a pay card, it's just a debit card, we load it up, they can go use it however they need to. And this policy is just taking out the paper check wording and moving into direct deposit.
I think it saves a lot of money on them.
It's a lot of time and money, sure does.
I don't think there would be any reason not to go ahead and send this one through.
with the automatically added, right? The word automatically down on where Amy suggested on number 4. Right.
I'm not reading that the way that.
The last sentence, number 4, the last sentence, hard copy pay statements will not be automatically provided unless specifically requested by the employee. She's only suggesting add the word automatically into it.
Because hard copy can be provided. We're not, so I don't want to say that they're not going to be provided.
So I would think that we maybe can just pass this with us, but maybe not send it all the way to the commission right now. We can send it all at one time when after the next meeting and.
I like building up on.
Right,
policy and then
instead
that's
of nickel and diming it, we can send it all in one big package once we get the rest of these edits made.
That being said, I'd like to make a motion for us to accept this with the automatic added for this meeting's purpose, so that we can move on. This is already taken care of. And we'll continue with the other ones and then present it as a full package.
Do I have a second? All those in favor? Perfect. All right, now moving on to the time clock system policy. Amy, I'm gonna let you talk about this.
Yay. This is adding language for a time clock system that is being implemented for payroll purposes. Right now, every department is on paper timesheets to where my department has to manually calculate the hours line by line. We have to manually calculate the vacation, the sick, everything. And using the time clock policy, that will all be automatically calculated. So employee will come in, I'm sorry, I'm not making eye contact with anybody, but employee will automatically will come into work. They can either, such as law enforcement, they can radio in, somebody can clock in for them. They can clock in through their patrol cars. We can clock in through our phones. There are workstations available. It's however the supervisor or elected official wants the employee to clock in. For instance, at the administration building, we all have our own computers. We can just log in through there and clock in, clock out. As you would on a paper timesheet, you're just doing it on a computer now. We had to come up with wording for the policy since it's a whole new system and would apply to the employees that are being paid out of the general services. I think I covered it. Questions?
One element of clarification, we're talking about the time clock system. We're actually talking about a software system and not a physical time clock.
Some locations do have a kiosk if they want to use them.
Okay.
Cliff wanted Public Works to have a thumbprint kiosk. We actually ordered 4. We have 2 that were reserved for the sheriff, but if y'all don't want to use them, that is the sheriff's decision.
For the jail, probably okay, but for patrol, we'd probably be better off to use computers.
That's what I'm getting at.
I-
So to be able to use the software, you can log in through computer or
Mhm.
their personal cell phone.
Mhm.
That'd be sufficient.
You know, the problem we had at the very beginning was time card hanging up at City Hall, an officer check 10-8, they go 10-8 to their house, they at work. There
Right.
could be a bad accident somewhere and they're not able to drive down and clock in. And dispatchers are so busy, if they're on a call with a wreck or something, they can't be getting up, clocking people in and out. They gotta be there.
Yeah, this would not be a
That's what
punch card system.
I'm worried about.
Okay,
I fought that beast under the city of Hartsville for many years.
Yeah.
And I
I'm
was
sure.
glad when we finally slaved the dragon and went to some other system at the time.
Yeah, this is basically a cloud-based, clock-in system, so
That's okay.
we can also have it, geolocated, and that is up to you if you want to enforce that for your department or not. So if you want somebody to be clocking in at a certain location, we can put their particular account. They can't clock in outside of this circle. If they do, it'll flag it. You will see that, and you can address it however you need to. Mhm.
Yeah, put one up at the jail would be fine. But for patrol, we use a computer
Sure.
and dispatchers, they
Like I
can
said,
use,
use computer.
they can use their
Real
computer.
estate training on this.
You don't have to get each dispatcher to a shift.
My understanding is it's being implemented like in stages
It
through
is.
different departments and you guys are gonna be last.
Yeah.
So that there's.
We want to test on the
Everything worked out.
easier departments first.
I talked to some other agencies. Wilson County still does paper like what we're doing. Sumner County is just switching over to this.
Mhm.
They're still, I think in time, everybody be going to something like this.
Yeah.
But they gotta have computers in their car. Some of them still don't. In Sumner County, they're trying to get this done, use their cell phones.
No Gallatin City is doing a system like this, for their officers.
Yeah.
They've been doing it for a while, talking to one of their officers, he said he's been doing it, clocking in from his car for, when he gets he lives in Hartsville, so when he hits the county line into Sumner County, he doesn't do anything, but it's when he gets, because he's a city cop, so when he gets in the city limits, the GPS on the car, and he's clocked in.
Oh, it automatically does it for him.
Well, they're geolocated also, their cars and whatnot, so once he gets to the city limit, he just clocks in and he's good to go from there.
I
Because
don't
it
think
shows
we're
him in the city
automatically
limits
do it.
Right.
without him having to go to city hall. Because just like they were saying,
Mhm.
it's completely understandable, an officer coming from their house might be working long before they ever get to the city hall or to the jail.
Definitely.
Same
Drive
time,
by a wreck, it's in there clocked in.
at the same time, I mean, people do, bad things all the time, and we don't want employees to be able to clock in from their driveway and then go back to bed.
Mhm.
And don't want the system to be abused either, so. Not that any of our officers would, but officers in the future. or
That does not
everyone's
apply
taking
this
time
time.
to do
It
so.
applies to all departments.
Exactly.
Okay, so all of this policy is new,
It's completely new. It'd be adding an
but it's
item.
all in practice now, other than like,
It is not in practice. right
not
now.
not necessarily the clock in and out, but the rules that are being established in this
Mhm.
policy are already rules.
Right, it still takes it basically from other policies, or other items within the personnel policy. It's just addressing everything. We've given our personnel policy to, Attendance on Demand is the name of the system. And they built a system particularly for us and for each department. So ambulance has, their 24-hour set of rules. Law enforcement has your 8, 10, and 12. You don't have 10 hours anymore, do you? So your 8 and 12s, it is, they have built this for us.
Commissioners?
And again, it is a new language, so again, I don't expect it to move forward tonight. I would love for you to review it, make sure that we haven't missed anything. I'm new to writing policy myself, so just want to make sure everything's covered.
Agree with your deputies on patrol, all the patrol cars have computers in them. So, can you think of an instance where a deputy wouldn't be able to clock in either? Or a jailer, or if you've got a kiosk at the jail, computer access for all your patrol officers and detectives.
Everybody's got access to computer in all buildings.
You know.
And the MVP depends on your connection to Verizon. But even if the computer failed for some reason, they still get access to their phones. Should be able to log in. And then if all that failed, they could drive the station, log in on the desktop and do it there.
And I'm sure you can edit, like if there is no Wi-Fi or internet connection, at
Mhm.
some point, the supervisor can edit the
Yeah.
time if they're not able to clock in at
Yes,
the.
we'll get a
correct
daily
now.
report of missed punches, I believe is what they call it. And so supervisor can go in, hey, did you clock in on time? I saw you here. And they can edit as needed and put in whatever notes they need.
All of our work now is computer based. We very rarely do anything. Log on computers first thing to do. We rarely do anything. So very much the lead to get that started.
Yeah, right now, we all use radio, even the correction officers. I started doing that to jail because I want to make sure we had a trail that they did come in when they were supposed to.
Mhm.
It's not coming in 5 minutes late or 15 minutes late.
Yeah.
Go back and look.
And the system is on that, I think it's a 7-minute period. So if you clock in at 7:33, that's still 7:30 clock in. If you're clocking in at 7:42, well, that's a 7:45 clock in. So it's still on that 7-minute basis.
That probably will require some edit to some extent, or, well, because most of the officers and deputies that get work 10, 15, 20 minutes prior to a shift. But as long as, and they don't count that part of the work day, they wait till I ground up for an hour.
Just on the system that we have, I know what I'm having to use at the hospital over in Gallatin, it does on the sevens. So if you clock in 7 minutes past, it automatically rounds up. If you do, under. So if I'm supposed to clock in at 6:30, I can clock in. They won't let us clock in any earlier than 23 without it being a mark in the system.
Right, that's just what I explained to you.
And so is that also with this system that it does the roundup and the,
Automatically will do that.
Okay.
So we're still on a quarter-hour basis, basically.
But you said this system automatically calculates hours, automatically accrues sick, automatically accrues vacation.
And they'll have access to their sick and vacation.
That's
They
the
won't
more
have-
important
we won't
feature.
Have the book and, yeah, they'll have it themselves and it's real time.
And we're also going to update our payroll system itself, where this will now, your holiday and sick will start appearing on your pay stubs, which everybody will be so happy for. We are so behind on that, but now that won't happen immediately when we switch over to the time clocks. But I think that happens with the payroll. Correct me if I'm wrong.
So maybe the committee members can take time until the next meeting to review this, make sure we're not missing anything, and then we can add it with the next policy. Maybe just table this. Postpone.
Postpone.
Motion to postpone would be appreciated. Okay. Semantics.
Robert's Rules of Order.
Somebody give me a motion, please. Perfect. So we'll postpone this to the next meeting with the caveat that you're gonna study it and make sure that we don't need to add anything to it. Second, all those in favor? All right, now. Any other discussion? Sheriff, do you want to talk about this?
Yeah. I got a lot of complaints, Waylon did, Michael did, from our staff, on why they weren't getting paid or any type of leave when everybody else got to take off. So we fixed up this letter here and give y'all something to look at, because they all feel like it's unfair, and I do too, that some people can take off the pay and others have to work. In the past, before 22, and the previous time before that, I know whenever we had the eclipse, Mayor Carmen gave everybody the day off to be able to watch the eclipse. So I went back and done a letter, and my people got 8 hours off with, you know, they could take it when they wanted to. And sometimes they got paid, sometimes we just took the 8 hours. And, I think it's just fair that all my people get something, whether it's 8 hours or 8 hours pay or,
And the county court decides.
you know.
Just give some context, is what the sheriff was saying. And prior to August of 22, the sheriff had his own personnel policy. And when, the administrative offices closed for whatever reason, snow or special events, the sheriff had the authority to grant that same amount of leave to his employees to take it at a later date. And that's what we did. August 22, county adopted a personnel policy that also included the sheriff's office. And back last year, in January, noted in that letter, there were 2 days and a couple of half a days that the admin offices were closed for snow. And we, as we had practiced in the past, we asked for the sheriff's employees to receive similar compensation. At that time, it was denied. So this time it happened again. And in fairness, to make sure that y'all are aware of the situation and to consider it through the county commission, that was the reason for the letter. And that gives the employees a voice to come to y'all and let y'all know the situation that they're concerned about. I think if the county commission chose to, in the event of an admin day like that, snow or inclement, bad weather, those employees had used a vacation day, I don't think their employees have a problem with it. Or if they're allowed to have a day off with pay, that sheriff's employees receive compensation in kind, whether it's a day in pay or a day off at a later date. That'd be for y'all to consider, we just identify the problem and bring it to y'all for consideration.
You know, I've got 55 employees on part-time, and they wore me out on this, and I know they have Wayland too.
And that was one reason we wrote the letter. They had some frustration and some energy in this issue. We want to give them a place to be constructive in their complaining through leaving a formal letter, and they signed it, brought it to y'all. We'd rather than do that is replace it other place.
You know, they're running up to the office and jumping on Jack, but I don't get my money in.
Okay, so, Mayor or Amy, can you explain, it says he was requested and it was denied, so why was it denied?
There's nothing in our policy that says that we would have.
Because policy didn't make that clear.
Okay, so we need to,
It's legal, because the policy wasn't clear. The issue that I face, Madam
Mhm.
Chairperson,
absolutely.
is, I hate for things to be driven by dollars. And if policy is clear on this, then I don't have to make the decision, well, am I gonna let my folks not work today because of inclement weather, because extra money is gonna be paid to the sheriff's department, which I don't mind. If that's within the policy, Sheriff Russell has a budget, and he can make that decision with it if it's within policy to pay his people. The other issue is, the reason it needs to be clearly stated in policy is a paid day needs to be defined as 8 hours or 12 hours or 24 hours, which it's different.
I think what everybody gets is 8-hour shift, I think that's.
But I mean, that needs to be stated in policy. The other thing is that if we have county employees who don't work that day, and then you go ahead and extend the day to first responders or the sheriff's department, then that person gonna feel slighted. So it's almost impossible to be completely fair. Because some will always say, well, that's not fair. And if there's anybody in this room who wants to be fair, it's me. I always seek to be fair. But I don't even know, Ray, if I had the authority that day on that request last time to say, yeah, just go ahead and pay them. Because our policy doesn't state it. That policy needs to be made clear.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
and I made recommendation, if I may, Mayor, Madam Chairman, if, Chief, if you'll get me the inclement weather policy that y'all had operated under and, or language, then what we could do is maybe tailor fit, to make it more fair.
I've seen two, one,
Clean it,
operate on prior to 22.
clean it up, and that way go on and let the county commission make their decision, because, from the mayor's standpoint, you know, whatever it says in policy, he's bound by it. And that's just the way he's gotta operate.
And I think that day that Mayor Carmen did kind of set a precedent. And I'm assuming he had the authority to do it this time. I really didn't feel like I had the authority to say, say it.
Going back to years ago, they never did do this. This is just something happened whenever Mayor Carmen came in office.
Yeah. Carmen was operating under a policy that was prior to 22.
It just needs to be cleaned up.
The same thing though, if you're gonna give it to the sheriff's department, are you gonna give it to EMS? Or are you gonna give it to Public Works that came in that day and worked?
Well,
Are they gonna use it?
this gets down to an issue of where I'm gonna head you off at the pass, because I was thinking that already. Because, you know, there are other departments. We recognize that there are departments that they're never gonna have to come in on inclement weather, but they don't statutorily, they can't not. And same way with EMS.
Like a hospital, we gotta be there.
Gotta be there.
I can't go back there and throw them some bread and bologna and say, we'll be back tomorrow.
Well, you could, but then we wind up in another federal lawsuit. So, you know, technically you could, but you know, legally speaking, lawyers gonna say, don't do that.
But y'all have mentioned this, and I would be inclined, if we go to this in policy, to say if county employees who don't come into work are using an administrative day, an 8-hour day, then that 8 hours should be the number used, but that can be determined in policy.
Needs to be spelled out.
It needs to be spelled out.
And I think that's what Chief was saying, it was previously an 8-hour. So if that's the,
And just to clarify, that was the reason at the time that the sheriff allowed a day off at a later date, so it wouldn't increase the budget. The money was already there for pay. We took a day off later, and actually deferred payment should be a time and a half. We never addressed that issue. We just let it straight 8 hours.
I think this could be worked out, and if it needs to be done retro, and the county commission approves it, then it's retro.
just give me that email, your proposed language or that old policy, and then we'll hash it out. Get it straightened out.
And we will put the inclement weather on the next meeting. You think you can get it?
Yeah.
Okay.
We can do anything.
Perfect. So that'll be on the next meeting. Any other discussion?
I don't want us to get bogged down so much into the it's not fair argument, because that goes down a whole nother rabbit hole of, well, we've got county employees who get to drive county vehicles back and forth to work and others who don't. Well, that's not fair. And
Let
so
me,
there's,
Commissioner, let me reiterate something I said earlier on. There's no such thing as equal in policy. You make it as fair as possible. That's the goal. You try to bring it, and I recognize that can sometimes be a moving target or a sliding scale, and a lot of it has to do with based on, it could be any number of factors, politics, economy, maybe religion, I don't know. But it all has to do with that. So I understand what they're saying. They're saying, we're all saying the same thing is what we're saying, but we'll work on it, make sure it gets brokered the right way.
Public comment. There's nobody from the public here. Okay, so we're gonna set the next meeting. Amy's looking at her calendar and I'm looking at mine. You prefer March or you want to do end of February? Okay, let's look at the March the 5th. What is today? Tuesday? Okay, March the 4th. How about that?
We've got steering committee.
At 5 o'clock on March the 4th in the mayor's office.
Okay.
Cause that's where the steering committee meets and that's where I will have to be. So March the 4th, 5 o'clock at the mayor's office is the next meeting. Everybody okay with that? Motion to adjourn? Somebody?
I'll say it.
We are adjourned.